In a world powered by global commerce, the interconnected web of supply chains drives our economy. But vulnerabilities within these chains can bring nations to their knees. As threats to supply chains multiply, we need to come together and share our intel. Welcome to the Tapa Emea's Conference 2023. Join the world's leading minds for 2 days of learning, collaboration, and innovation. Discover advanced strategies from risk assessment methodologies to cutting-edge vendor management techniques. The threats are real, and the impact is felt worldwide. Connect with top industry professionals, exchange ideas, and build relationships that redefine supply chain resilience. Join us to secure supply chain resilience.
Good morning and welcome back to the Tapa Emea live stream studio in Germany for day 2 of our Resilience at Risk virtual conference. I'm delighted to be joined by Marcel Sarlos, Chair of Tapa Emea, to preview what's coming up on our agenda today. Marcel, thank you so much for being here. We do have some great sessions to look forward to, don't we?
Absolutely, and thank you, Sam, and good morning, everyone.
I'll leave you to it.
Yeah, thank you. So, as Sam says, we have a great lineup of speakers and actually very strong supporters of Tapa as well. And some of you might know them already. But we're thrilled that they are willing to share their knowledge and expertise with us and with the members. But I want to take a moment to reflect back on 2023, as this is the last conference for this year. And Torsten already mentioned a lot of that things yesterday, what is up ahead. But I really want to take the opportunity to thank my colleagues of the board, execs and non-execs, the staff, and the volunteers, but especially you as members, to make the achievements and support the achievements that we have made in 2023. It makes me proud, brings a smile to my face. So let's continue that. Later today, we will have some questions. So if you have any questions at all, you can always use that Tapa information email address at info@tapaemea.org. And we'll do our best to answer all the questions you might have in relation to supply chain security, and maybe even if you have suggestions or ideas. But now, for now, let's get ready for our first speaker. So Sam, back to you.
Thank you so much, Marcel. And we do, as you mentioned, look forward to welcoming you back later today when we'll be recapping on the key Tapa Emea developments in 2023 and looking ahead to 2024. Now, as we heard yesterday, cargo crime in the EMEA region is growing at an ever faster pace. Incidents reported to the Tapa Emea Intelligence Service alone produce a loss of more than 522 million euros in the first 9 months of this year. And as Torsten stated, only 20% of these crimes stated their financial value. Now, our first speaker today can give us an insight into what it's like to be on the front line of these types of incidents. Leif Pedersen is Insurance and Claims Manager at Freya Transport and Logistics. Now, as some of you may well recall, Leif joined the Tapa Emea Nordics Regional Conference in September, and today we've invited him to return to share his cargo crime experiences with this bigger virtual conference audience. So more of the association's members will be gaining important information from what we're about to hear and benefit from this valuable insight. Now, Leif's presentation today looks at some quite spectacular real-life cargo crime incidents, as well as examples of practical practical and low-cost cargo crime prevention methods, and will outline Tapa Emea's important role in Freya's supply chain security programme. So now let's welcome Leif to the studio. Leif, thank you so much for joining us. Let me hand over to you to tell us more.
Thank you very much, Sam, for the nice presentation, and thank you for the opportunity to talking to you all. What I intend to do today is to tell a little bit about my past experiences within the cargo crime and how I see the present situation, and I'll also have a sneak peek into the future. Cargo crime, theft of cargo from the transports is a very big issue for me. It takes a lot of my time. But I have to keep in mind at least that in fact the risk or the chance, if you will, of a shipment being stolen while in Freya's custody on road transport in Europe, that has never exceeded 1 of 22,000. In fact, the last statistic says it is rather 1 of 30,000. So it's a minor issue, but however a big issue when it happens. Roadside crime can hit anyone. This picture is a picture of the door handle in my caravan. Reason that the key doesn't fit anymore is that somebody tried to break into my caravan. This summer on my way to holiday in Provence at a roadside parking facility in close to Dijon in France. I woke 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning having this strange feeling that something isn't right, and indeed something wasn't right. The next thing I saw was the door handle moving downwards. I went up and opened the door, and what I could hear was some footsteps moving very fast away from me. And that is in fact what happened. Somebody has used some kind of tool to manipulate the locking cylinder and tried to get into the caravan. In fact, I had parked by the book, so to speak, after common recommendations on trucks, well-lit video surveillance within sight from the restaurant at the place. But anyway, this happened. A pretty scary experience, I would say. Taking back to my beginning in the transport industry, that was back in 1977. At that time, this kind of trucks, the Volvo F88, was the working horse of transport within Europe, but in fact also to destinations such as Kabul, Tehran, Baghdad. We used these marvelous trucks. Back then, I don't recall cargo crime as a big issue. However, within the first months I had been working in the industry, we had the first theft I recall. And that was one of the classics. That was theft of a complete truckload of salted cod in Italy. Classic, the Italian way of doing things. They forced the driver out of the truck, went away with truck trailer and the salted cod. My boss went down to Italy to try to find his truck. He returned with the number plates. He found the truck being scrapped at a scrapyard and could return with the number plates. That was the very first experience I recall with cargo crime. Myself, being a truck driver for 88 years in the 1980s, I have 2 cases. One case, a break into a reefer trailer where somebody stole 35 kilos of spare ribs. Who the hell will steal 35 kilos of spare ribs? I hope they've been hungry. The other case I had on my own truck was theft of beer. Not a big deal, a few cases. The major issue with both those incidents was in fact that both transports were made under customs seal. So we had quite some problems rooting out later on with the customs. But that was in fact what I experienced myself in my years on the European roads. When we come to the late 1980s, then I had joined the Freya transport company, who then was 5 years old. I worked there as a dispatcher and transport planner for quite some years. And just to give you a brief introduction to what is Freya, we are a Scandinavian-owned company. We have office in Denmark, Sweden, Norway, Finland, Poland, China, and in fact also now in the Netherlands. We are a classic freight forwarder, meaning we use subcarriers for 98% of the transports we make. We operate an own fleet of some 3,300 trailers. And just to give you an impression of where we are working in Europe, this is a screen dump from our trailer tracking system made on a random Wednesday morning. And as you see, we are extensively present in Denmark, of course, Sweden, the Netherlands, Luxembourg, Belgium, Germany, and Poland. And we are also present in elsewhere. We do not do anything in Ukraine, Russia, and Belarus at the moment. But that is where we are operating. Sweden is a really big market of ours. During the 1990s, we didn't see cargo crime as a big issue. We had some random cases, especially, unfortunately, again in Sweden, tarpaulin cuttings and some random thefts of whatever cargo the criminals found in the trailers. No real big deal until we had a real wake-up call in 2011. This picture is taken from the surveillance camera on our then cross-docking facility in Helsingborg, Sweden. It's taken about 6:30 on a Saturday morning. The gate in the background, unfortunately the night before it was hit by a truck and it couldn't anymore close or open. The landlord didn't think that was a major issue. It turned out to be. These three gentlemen who are now walking across the yard early in the morning, the next thing they do, they are entering into the terminal building via a back door. They simply locked up the door. It turned out that the locking cylinder had been swapped. And next step, a truck coming into the area. Another truck came shortly after and docked at the loading ramp. And then what happens within the next less than 15 minutes was that the three gentlemen we see in the picture, they disconnected the forklift from the chargers. The charging room they come into, there was no room sensors, but there was in the rooms behind where the goods was. After they had disconnected and they started loading 54 pallets of wine and spirits prepared for distribution on the following workday. Loaded into 2 trucks and off they went. And we never saw anything more of these 54 pallets of beverages. Or, to be precise, the police found 9 pallets of wine half a year later by coincidence. But that was what was stolen in a very short time. The loss for the client, for cargo owner, was about 1.5 million Swedish kroner. Unfortunately, it turned out he had no insurance cover, and we could limit our liability as carriers to considerably lower amounts. So that in fact ended up tragically by a cargo owner losing a lot of money and Freja losing a valued client. But that was what happened then. In fact, I can tell you this is the second time I show this slides to anyone, telling this story. 2011, that was also about the time we became Tapa members. In the 2010s until 2018, we had to relate to the fact that cargo crime was in fact an ever-increasing problem to us. We had a lot of minor attacks in Sweden primarily, but also elsewhere. And this is the classic one, tarpaulin cuts. Thieves take whatever they find inside the truck and they go away with some 10 12, 15 cubic meters, exactly what fits into a van. That was quite an issue. We also, in this time, had a number of very big thefts where whole vehicles, trailers, loads were stolen from us. A few, but very expensive ones. What was at that time, once more in Sweden, which is our home market, so one of our home markets, so to speak, was normal consumer goods. What you can buy, everyone can buy in a kiosk or a supermarket. That was what they were going for then. During these years until 2018, where we had the number of incidents that topped, we also had a few, 2 or 3 incidents where we lost cargo due to freight exchange portal fraud. But let me say it this way, 2018 was the worst year for us in regard of cargo crime. Then, in fact, it has stabilized and decreased later on. I'll come back to that. I have taken one more case that is from 2017, also in Sweden. And this ended up with a real bad day for the criminals, I can tell you. What happened was that some of the criminal guys, they climbed the fence using a ladder, went into the yard. From the inside, they could take away the housing for the mechanism controlling the gate, taking out a wheel from the gearing, and simply pushing the gate open. Next step was taking forward the horses, a stolen truck. They go directly to one of several trailers parked in the line. This trailer was fitted with a kingpin lock. They simply moved backwards with the truck into the kingpin lock and hit it 3 times. Third time, the housing of the kingpin lock cracked and fell off. And then they simply took the trailer and away they went. Unfortunately, they did not close the gate when they went out of the yard. And a guard coming some 20 minutes later could say, here's something wrong. He called our site manager, and it took 20 minutes, half an hour for him to find out there's the trailer missing, and it's here. And we could send the police directly to the site some 10 kilometers away, finding 2 local criminals trying to find out what they had stolen. And this is what they had stolen. This is some semi-theft targeted goods. We don't think it was really what they were going for, because what they didn't know that was inside of the house behind the trailer there was some 15 pallets of real high-value goods. So which should be loaded. This is also taking place on a Saturday evening. The real high-value goods should be loaded Sunday evening, and then the trailer should go on to the destination. So we frankly believe that what they had an idea that this trailer should be loaded with some real high-value goods, but were very much disappointed because it wasn't on board when they stole it. What they did to the goods, you can see in the last picture, that was that they made a lot of damage to it. So nothing was missing, but there was a lot of damage. The 2 criminals, they were taken to court, and they became a short jail sentence due to this incident and a couple of more incidents he was suspected for. I believe this tells a little bit about the development from 2009 and to 2007. And in fact, that was also a pretty good picture on what happened, because when theft, especially in Sweden, had topped in 2018, we saw a slight decrease in the number of thefts. And why is that? Well, some of the well-known criminals, they were behind bars. We know that. But in fact, also, in my opinion, the reason that we saw this decrease in thefts is the fact that at that time, especially cargo owners had started taking very seriously care of their goods, protecting their goods, meaning that real high value goods we were not anymore asked to take that as normal goods. There were some security measurements to be taken. And I think that's a very good thing, and that we can thank the cargo owners for doing a very good job there. We also had, in cooperation with a number of clients, some very simple and low-cost measurements against cargo theft. Basically simple to avoid having the theft-targeted cargo on board the vehicles parked during nights and weekends. Sweden was still the major problem to us, but also areas such as Sussex and Kent and northern France, Belgium, some parts of Germany we were attacked at that time. But mainly in Sweden we had the issue. And some of the things we did was simply to keep the goods and trailers and vehicles out of Sweden for the weekends. That reduced the number of thefts considerably. Another thing we did together with one client who was really hard hit by theft of goods was we suggested him to, instead of asking us to load Friday morning for a destination 300 kilometers away and then have the truck standing open to everyone for the whole weekend, we suggested him, with the purpose of unloading, as I say, 7 o'clock on the Monday morning at the consignee. We suggested them we start loading instead 3 o'clock Monday morning, and then go directly to the client for unloading in the morning 300 kilometers away. And then they come up with their own idea. Why don't we only load Monday morning 7 o'clock? And then deliver at noontime. And that's exactly what we did in a number of relations, simply loading for direct delivery. We have never in Sweden had any attacks to trucks while driving. It's always in the parking we have the problem. And that is, I will say, that is a very simple and very low-cost attitude or approach to the issue. But it takes some time getting rid of tight time slots and lead times. But that is one very practical, low-cost way of doing things. Tapa, in this connection, long-time members at this time, and what we do use the Tapa facilities, such as TIS and the parking facilities. And in fact, I must say we have a sneak peek into the standards using elements that is convenient to us, though we are not at present certified. But in Tapa, in general, I would say that is a very good, very good result they have come to. I don't think Tapa themselves imagine how many contracts, insurance conditions, whatever, we see Tapa fingerprints in very clearly. And that is from members as well as from non-Tapa members. And I will say once more, it's a genius idea to connect all stakeholders and giving us a forum where we can exchange ideas and thoughts on how to prevent cargo crime. Going from hardcore cargo crime, I have a couple of further issues I will mention here. One is migrants. That's a real big issue. We have been dealing with migrants in France, UK, and indeed we have been dealing with migrants issues in our Greece traffic. What happens when migrants in a truck is revealed, for instance, when a truck shall leave a harbor in Greece, is that truck, trailer and goods is seized by the Greek authorities. Driver is jailed for a couple of days. He is accused of human trafficking. He comes out of jail after 2, 3, 4 days. Goods are released immediately, and then we have to open a court case against the Greek state to have truck and trailer released. That gives an interruption in the in the transport flow simply. And that is pretty much an issue. I will not say we have many of those cases, but some cases we have when there is a huge pressure on the migration from into and out of Greece. Another issue I'll mention is food transport. Issue with food transport is that not that much that goods are stolen, but that is intrusion into the trucks. Food safety. A lot of food clients, they are very, very concerned when foreign persons enter into the truck. In fact, a lot of them, they say, if unknown persons has been inside the truck with foodstuff, the foodstuff is not anymore usable for human consumption. You don't have a loss in the understanding of the transport legislation, but client suffers a loss anyway. That's pretty much a issue, and I will say that was perhaps an issue that Tapa could take into consideration, supporting the members who are in the food industry. A little sneak peek into the future, look into the crystal ball. What will happen the next years? We don't know. My best guess is that girls and boys fooling around with knives on parking lots around in Europe, cutting turbulence, finding and stealing whatever they find attractive, that will go on. But I also do believe that we will see some new modus operandi, or perhaps we even already see them. There's a lot of talk about subcontracting as a risk. And I do agree with those who say that uncontrolled subcontracting is a risk to take into consideration. But frankly, as the structure is at the moment in the European transport industry, subcontracting cannot be avoided. That is a major way of doing things for all larger freight forwarding companies. Then I think we will have an issue, or we do have an issue, with theft of information and use of the stolen information to redirect deliveries. I think there are some elements that are vulnerable in the digital information flow surrounding the transport. And freight exchange portal fraud is definitely also an issue to take into consideration in the future. I'm not that afraid of the big, well-established freight exchange portals, but we do have an issue with the minor, less professional ones who are operating in some parts of Europe. And then, let me put it this way, we will probably also see modus operandi in the future that we have never even thought of. So I will wrap this presentation up by saying that was my experiences, something about my experiences, my points of view. And one thing is very sure, cargo crime has come to stay in one way or the other, one version or the other. We do have to stay alert. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for
Thank
that
you.
presentation.
Thank
It
you.
was very revealing, very
Thank you.
interesting. Thank you. Before you leave, I do have a few quick questions
Yes.
for you. Now, I'd like to begin with the topic of subcontracting, because you mentioned controlled subcontracting in your presentation. What does that really mean in more detail, and can you give us some examples?
I can give you a few examples. Subcontracting, basically, we as freight forwarders do not own any trucks. We get the transport order from the client. We subcontract to a road haulier or a shipping company or whoever we use as performing carriers. That we can control when we take it one level down. We can also control 2 levels down. But just to give you an example that I saw recently in a claims case, had nothing to do with theft of cargo, but with simple goods damage. There I could see it was revealed that Freya was number 7 of in total 9 subcontracting parties. This was a shipment of a few pallets from Copenhagen, Denmark, to Mannheim, Germany. There were 9 carriers involved in that transport. And with that much communication, there is a very, very huge risk that some important information is going missing, and a huge risk that somebody who shouldn't know of this transport get an opportunity of getting the knowledge of this shipment is on its way. So I see that is extreme with 9 levels of subcontracting, but that is what we see occasionally, and I believe there's the risk. We can control as freight forwarders 1, 2, perhaps 3 levels, but not beyond that, in my opinion.
Digital information flow surrounding transportation is another very important subject that you touched on and covered. What more can you tell us about this?
I would say digital information flow, that is becoming as important as the transport of the goods itself, at least in the opinion of the transport clients. But I think I fully agree there's a lot of good things in a good digital information flow. But do we really need, a client, does he really need to have live tracking of one pallet for the whole journey? That is what freight forwarders offer their clients. Fire does also offer a client to make real-time tracking of the single shipment. Is that needed? Because that also means a risk that somebody who has bad intentions, they can also follow the shipment. Perhaps it would be good enough for the client to know when goods is delivered, and perhaps afterwards could see some more details. That is one of the issues I see. And then I see quite a risk also that digital communication, that also includes instructing truck drivers by SMS message, by mobile phone, and that is well known that can be hacked. I also believe we should look into that issue, but that is something that can be abused, in my opinion.
And just one more point to finish off. You've highlighted the value of Freya's Tapa Emea membership. Why is this so important to you, and what are the tools that are especially useful?
What is important to us, that is knowledge, know-how, and networking. That is some very good aspects of the Tapa membership, but also the tremendous good tools that has been made. We use the TIS facility. We report ourselves, but we also look into the statistics or whatever information we can get from there in assessing how to handle the transport. We are using the parking facilities, and as I have said just a moment ago, in fact, we are also utilizing some of the elements in the Tapa standards. In fact, a lot of the elements in the Tapa standards, although we are not yet Tapa certified. And why is that? There simply is no client's requirement making us doing that. I believe we will become certified. It will become so, at least for our warehousing facilities, within the next 2-3 years or so.
And just to pick up on that as well, what more, you mentioned food goods actually in your presentation, but what more can Tapa Emea do to support the supply chain resilience of companies like Freya going forward in the future?
Well, I think Tapa can go on the direction they are right now, and then look into some other parts of the supply chain business. Food transport is a real issue. I think there's good opportunities, and I'll also note that a lot of foodstuff companies, they are part of, they are members of Tapa already now, and I can tell you when we are dealing contracts with them, they do know also what are the Tapa guidelines. But I think go on with the good work and get even more companies within the Tapa community.
Leif, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a really enlightening presentation, and
Thank
thanks
you.
for the questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, before I introduce our next presenter, 2 quick reminders if you've only just joined us. Don't forget to visit our virtual exhibition at any time during today's event to connect with Tapa Emea's 2023 Premier Partners. They'll be very happy to tell you more about their supply chain security products and services. And online you'll find their company profiles, videos, contact information and a quick and easy form to request further information, and that's all on the conference website. Secondly, a reminder that this Resilience at Risk virtual conference is adhering to Chatham House rules. Now that means that you are free to use information from our conference sessions, but not allowed to reveal who made any specific comments without their prior permission. Now, our next speaker is going to take us on a journey with a tour inside the remote security services that day by day are replacing humans in the field of operations and offering a host of quality, cost, safety and security risk reduction benefits for companies across the EMEA region. This new concept is well known in the transportation and logistics sectors, but according to Francesco Giannini, Managing Director of Multi-Protection, it's not always applied by players in the supply chain. Today, remote security services have reached high levels of efficiency, guaranteeing for customers success rates similar and often better than those of physical services. And thanks to remote services and their lower costs, it's now possible to extend high security levels, which in the past have been reserved for only high-value goods, to lower value shipments as well. This is especially important given the rising crime statistics that we've been hearing about during this event, and the fact that attacks against low and medium value goods are increasing because criminals consider these types of cargoes to be less protected and therefore easier to steal from supply chains. So, let's hear an update from Francesco now, which he recorded especially for this event at Multi-Protection's headquarters in Italy.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome and thanks for joining our presentation. Today, I would like to make a tour inside the remote security services that day by day are replacing humans on the field, bringing several advantages both in terms of quality, costs, safety and security risk reduction. This new concept is well known and introduced in both transportation and warehousing, but not always is applied by the players. Today, remote security services have reached a very high level of efficiency, guaranteeing customer success rates very similar and sometimes better to those of physical services. This is a very important aspect considering that statistics indicate that attacks against low and medium value goods are increasing, as those goods are in average less protected. Let's do a deep analysis of several other organizational and operational advantages included, for example, the possibility to avoid collateral damages related to possible contacts between criminals and guards, or, last but not the least, the environmental benefit having less escort cars on the road. So let's see our agenda for today. We will start from a general view of what really is changing and will change in the next year. And then let's see what is already possible applying remote services to security. Most of the academic theories say that in the next 5-10 years we will have 7 paradigm shifts that will change the organization and our lives. Those are the end of average, the end of doing, that is the more interesting for us, the end of reality, the end of abundance, the end of the profit first, the end of isolation, and the end of ownership. All of them are explicable in different ways, but let's concentrate on the end of doing. Let's see some example. So what means end of doing? It means end of doing things through 3 main things that we see here. Superpower me, artificial intelligence and Internet of everything. The combination of these three things will allow us to stop to do something. So you can imagine that superpower me, it's something that is related to physically power the humans, but in security we can concentrate on the artificial intelligence and the Internet of everything. Let's see some examples. Here we have some example of what is changing, and some of those things are already in place. Some are well known. In the first picture you can see Google Maps. So there are nobody that asks information on the people on the road. Now we all use a navigation system to reach our destination. We can learn piano without any teacher. We can make our shopping without any cashier. Or we can buy fruit and vegetables directly from a little truck without any driver and any cashier. Or in San Francisco, in example, we can take a taxi without any driver because it is already active and autonomous driving system without any driver. So this is 5 examples about end of doing those things. But let's see what is changing in the security environment applying remote control. Let's see some benefits we are having, and let's see how we are doing this. Escorting a truck and protected buildings remotely through telematic escort, artificial intelligence, remote access control, and IoT in general. Finally, we are replacing human with technology even in the security environment. Another benefit is that with remote control we are mitigating risks. Security personnel is safely closed in a monitoring room, so we can avoid all the probabilities to have contacts between offenders and guarding operators. We are mitigating the risk of harms. It is not rare that we have harms in case of attacks to escorted trucks. We had a couple of experiences in the last 10 years where the offender attacked the truck, an escorted truck, and at the end somebody was hurt about this incident. ARC operators work without tension as they are not on the field. And be more calm means to be more clarity in managing danger situation. Remote control is even easy to manage. Just switch it on and off. What does it mean? So in case of building, just switch on and off your intelligent security system and go home. Or in case of transportation, just plan a trip, just plan drive a stop, and that's all. So we have low impact on company organization. It is 24/7 available, so always, and no need for respecting particular laws. You know that the escorting laws, depending on the country, are quite different, and not always it's easy to respect them. And we can say that there is no border. In example, for the Italian guards, it's not possible to bring out from Italy their weapons, and there is a very heavy procedure if you won't do this. It is so true that escort companies prefer to change the escort team when they are at the border with other countries. We can say that the remote control is even more reliable. As I always say, technology always works, and when it stops working, it works, at least normally. So we can bypass all the human weaknesses. Technology doesn't sleep, technology doesn't eat, technology doesn't need toilet, technology doesn't think outside, it is set, doesn't lose time, and above all, it reacts immediately. And what about the costs? I reported here the average cost of an escort for a truck and guarding services. You can see that a physical escort is between 50 and 100 euro per hour, depending on how many car, how many guard, but this is the average I paid when I used it to do escort in my previous job. And then add to this toll, two-way, and fuel that have to be reimbursed apart. The cost of a telematic escort is something like 350 euro per month for truck plus trailer, included system and unlimited trip control. So you can see that the difference is very high. And what about the hidden cost? So who is organizing the escort from a customer perspective? And especially if, as I said before, if it is required an international trip, we have still the border problem to manage. No hidden cost for telematic escort. Once it is planned, it will be as it was planned. And what about the building? If you put a guard on a site, it will cost more or less in average in Europe, we can talk about from 20 to 24 euro per hour. And it means that you will spend around 200,000 euro per year to have a 24/7 service. If you put the best system that you can have, so let's say an artificial intelligence system that can remark that somebody is trying to break in before they are breaking in, you can spend between 2,000–4,000 euro per month in average, having something that is very, very, very effective. And what about the performances? Here I can speak just for my company, and we can say that in the last 5 years we didn't have any incident on building controlled by artificial intelligence and truck under telematic escorts. We had several attempts, but thanks to the technology and thanks to the fact that the intelligence is moved on site or on the truck, we didn't have any attempt that was successful for the offender. And last but not the least, in one of the last vigilance, we saw that the attention of the criminal is more focused now on medium and low value goods, as they are less protected. As the cost of the remote control is more sustainable, we can even think to apply high security level to the goods that are more targeted in the last year. And it will help us to stop the attacks or to prevent or avoid the attacks even on medium and low value goods with a sustainable cost. So let's see together a case study here. Let's say we have a big building site with vehicles, equipments, and all the things we need to make our construction. And every evening at 5 p.m., the staff leaves the site, and normally we have a guard that stays at the gate all night long to check that nobody get in. This is a typical application of the security equipment that can replace human service, because in example with our ET, we called it ET because it recalls with this extendable neck the star of the 80s. I was saying that with our ET we can check a range of more than 200 meters, putting the equipment in the center of the building site, and we can use artificial intelligence to check the whole perimeter. So better than a guard, and it costs maybe the half or less. I hope I have given you some food for thought. So thank you everybody, and see you all at the next In Presence conference. Bye bye.
And thank you so much to Francesco for a very interesting update. And don't forget that if you do want to connect with Multi-Protection or any of the Tapa Emea 2023 Premier partners, they are waiting to hear from you now and all day today in our special virtual exhibition area on our conference website. Let's keep with this technology focus now as we introduce our next speaker, Jörg Schipp, Global Account Manager Logistics at Johnson Controls. Today, sustainable supply chains prioritise transparency, responsible practices, risk mitigation, collaboration and employee well-being. By integrating these principles into their operations, companies can create more secure and resilient supply chains that not only contribute to a sustainable future, but also protect against various security risks and disruptions. To discuss how new technologies are impacting a secure and sustainable world, we are delighted to welcome Jörg into our studio here in Germany. Jörg, welcome. We're really looking forward to your presentation. Thank you for being here, and over to you.
Hello, everybody. We heard the words today, tomorrow, but before talking about the road ahead, before talking about how our future could look like and will most probably look like, I'd like to take you back on a trip back in time to the year 2015. There was a Tapa conference going on in Munich in this year, and that was also about technologies, about how our world could look like, and I'd like to show you some images and just think about what we are seeing now. So that was yesterday. That was 2015. our predictions. That were Al Gore's predictions in 2013. So that was yesterday again. How are we today? Where are we today? Today, 2023, we have got 5 years more until 2028. So what became true, what's true, what is already on our world? Globalization. We identified globalization as, excuse me, we identified globalization as one of the key challenges. So coping with the global world, making sure that we are compliant with global requirements. And hand in hand with that goes security challenges. So how do we make sure that our security systems are following the patterns? How do we make sure that our security is up to date? And again, when we talk about globalization and security challenges, it comes to cost pressure. And I don't have to say more about this. We're all having cost pressures. It becomes more and more cost effective. The pressure to become cost effective is there. And worldwide threats. I mean, 2020, 2023 has been a decade of worldwide threats, wars, demolition on world. So this is something which we already identified and we already kind of feared in these years. So the most dramatic threats and the most challenging ones are those two. It's organized crime, it's security challenges, and it's also the climate crisis, geopolitical tensions. So these are the ones, and how can we talk about future and how can we kind of use artificial intelligence to fight this back?
The AI revolution in physical security is changing the way that businesses and organizations protect their assets, people, and property. With the advancement of artificial intelligence and machine learning, security systems are becoming smarter, more efficient, and more effective at detecting and preventing security breaches. With the ability to process large amounts of data quickly and accurately, reduce false alarms, detect patterns and anomalies, and be customized and configured to meet specific needs, AI is providing organizations with a new level of security that was previously unimaginable. In addition to these benefits, AI can also improve the scalability and flexibility of security systems. This enables businesses to scale their security systems up or down as needed, making it easier to adapt to changing security needs. As AI continues to advance, it will be interesting to see how it will continue to shape the future of physical security.
So from risk to resilience, how is artificial intelligence helping us to transform security? We've got 5 key aspects, a lot more aspects to talk about, but let's focus on 5 key aspects. Early warning systems, so artificial intelligence can help us with predictive maintenances. It will recognize weaknesses and patterns to be modified. Predictive analytics, give you an example, if your barcoding system gets weaker and the quality of images will get weaker, artificial intelligence can help you to predict the maintenance and the temperance of maintenance. Crisis management and responses, artificial intelligence is able to support us with crisis management, responsiveness, adapting the layers of your security when it's needed, when do we need a higher layer of security against a lower one, different zones to be modified. And obviously then enhancing the surveillance and security. So it really enhances the way we look at it. And last but not least, climate change mitigation. Security and sustainability, and that's my belief, will go hand in hand. Sustainability will become a very, very important topic for us. And my belief is that this will become also a security issue. Safety, security will become more and more important, and we need to take care of our planet. Just recall what Al Gore predicted in 2013, and I think the way we are living today is proving that already. So a secure and more sustainable future, I think that's really key for our planet. That's really key for the next generations. And I think it's our responsibility, by protecting all global assets, by living sustainable world, by decarbonization and decarbonizing the supply chain, and also managing rising costs. I think these 4 key aspects are our responsibility to really make sure we're handing over a safe, secure and sustainable planet to the next generations. And let me give you a couple of examples how we at Johnson Controls think about it and how we live that.
Overall for us, what's a smart building? It's a building that's intelligent, that's connected, that all the in-building systems coherently integrate in ways that bring more value to the owner, occupiers and users of buildings. Johnson Controls is the world's leading building technology company. And we supply products and services that make buildings more secure, more sustainable, more productive, and we help owners, occupiers, and tenants of buildings get the most out of their built environment. The security needs of buildings and cities are changing rapidly, and so that means things like extreme weather events that can impact you, insider threat, crime, terror, social media. We have to come up with solutions that protect enterprises from those risks and threats. And that's really enabled by digital transformation. It's enabled by cloud technology. It's enabled by machine learning and AI capability that didn't exist before, but now you need it to deal with the volume of information that you ingest. And those are the solutions that Johnson Controls are bringing to our clients, because we understand intimately what's inside a building, all the technologies that can be deployed, how to find them, where they are, how they're performing, and then what are the protections that you layer on top of those to make sure no bad actor can access those systems and give bad commands and controls to those that are outside of what you want to have those systems do. The intelligence and the in-building equipment is in our portfolio, and this building is a great example of all of that in one space that we can bring customers to and show. So it's got our intrusion security, our access control, our CCTV, our fire detection, our fire suppression systems. So we integrate all those different systems into one central management system, Johnson Controls Enterprise Management, that manages the entire building. Our security system here, we've integrated with the destination control lift system. So as you badge in through our access control system, that informs us that you're here and you're in the building, you've arrived, and we know who you're going to visit. And so the lifts then take over and they'll deliver you security to that destination only, and they'll do that in the lowest energy way that we can do.
So if you have a breach in some part of your security posture, knowing where the gap is the first most important thing. There's a big gap in industry today where there isn't an inventory, a digital inventory of all of the different parts of your security portfolio. So that really is the first step to understand where all of the parts are, know what the status of it is, and also too its vulnerability to cyber threat. So in Johnson Controls we have assurance services, and that allows you to be able to digitize all of the inventory for your security portfolio. In there you'll be able to determine your monitoring capabilities of your assets in your security portfolio and observe for any degradation of any of those assets.
And so what you see on the screen here is we can give you an enterprise view. So we start at a world view, where are all your buildings and your assets? And then we can zoom into any particular asset. In this case, we'll zoom into a building in Cork in Ireland. So if you imagine a digital twin of a building, what does that mean? Well, it means there are, literally hundreds of thousands of components and things and systems and electronics within a building. And so we're able to bring that digital twin, that view, to life on a screen like this, where you see the building, but then if you want to understand the layers and things within a building, here you see exploding out into all the things that are contained within the building. And again, that's what helps us to manage the life cycle of your building post-construction. And that's hugely empowering for all kinds of use cases, for preventive maintenance, for quick fixes, for bringing service technicians to buildings, if you want to value the asset, if you want to sell the asset.
Customers play a key part in keeping data and buildings secure, because essentially security is about human behaviour. But for us it's about empowering our customers in knowing where they begin that security journey. So cyber hygiene is that first step, knowing where your assets are, knowing where your endpoints are, knowing the status and health condition of those assets. Do they need to be quarantined? Have they been compromised? And empowering our customers with the tools and technologies that we've developed here gives them the ability to defend against potential threats, and gives them the knowledge of understanding the enterprise risk for them.
Reactive security could be considered as responding to an incident or threat, but only after you understand what the incident or threat is. Proactive security is a greater insight to what might be occurring before it occurs, so you can get a faster response time from your security divisions. Specifically, what we use in Johnson Controls is artificial intelligence, machine learning, and data analytics to better understand what's happening in your environment.
So within Johnson Controls, we have a number of different platforms that build on top of that. The first is our Johnson Controls Digital Vault. That's really the platform that brings in all the data, structures it, makes it coherent. On top of that, then you can actually start to do the data analytics And from that data analytics, then we can branch off into a number of different areas. So proactive enterprise management is the buzzword at the moment. Most buildings and smart buildings are moving to adopt and use that. And that is where you have this continuous management of the cycle inside the building, be it for performance or energy. An example of that from Johnson Controls is Johnson Controls Enterprise Management, where you can manage a single building or an entire portfolio across the planet.
Johnson Controls plans to stay ahead of that changing curve that we see, or this technology curve that we see coming at us, by investing heavily in digital transformation. So we have created a digital solutions business unit in Johnson Controls with its sole purpose is to understand those changes in technology and how do we harvest all of that data and that digital transformation. How do we help clients on the digital transformation journey in buildings, in security? How do we leverage all that technology that's emerging and put it to economical use? And so for us, that's a constant challenge. It's our daily challenge that we do, but it's one that we really enjoy. It's very exciting. It is a new frontier. We're a company that's been around for more than 100 years, so we've stood the test of time. But for us, this is the next generation. And so we're investing heavily in it. We understand it is the way the world is moving. It is what our big clients are looking for us to solve. And we're working at pace to bring solutions for all of those needs in digital transformation.
So, successfully living together, let's really live together, working and living hand in hand, protecting our planet, being sustainable, being smart, secure. I think these are all key aspects. And by the way, the images you saw in this video is our corporate headquarters in Cork. Anybody who wants to visit that building for a smart technology building, you're more than welcome to join us there, more than welcome to ask questions. I hope I gave you a little bit of insight how we could really make our planet safer, smarter and more secure. And with that, I'd like to thank you.
Yeah. So much for joining us today and for such an interesting presentation. And thank you also for agreeing to answer a few questions. Now, AI is especially topical right now, but is AI a word of the future or is it already here?
Good question. I think it's already there. I mean, when you look at cameras today, and you saw some of the videos, it's there. We are using AI, not in the way which is the power of it is, but we're kind of just starting to use it. The most important topic is human beings and AI need to work together. Let's not forget the human beings, because intelligence is artificial. Together with us as a human being, it makes it a complete world.
You also mentioned sustainability. Do you think that security and sustainability have common touch points?
I do. And again, a great question. And I do believe that security will be taking part and taking care of sustainability. It's about sustainability. It's about sustainable security. It's about protecting the environment, protecting the supply chain. And I think that goes hand in hand. And you see those websites of companies, we're all having these tasks to build a green future. E-mobility is a very important topic. And just a very last example on that, e-vehicles is a dangerous thing because charging an e-vehicle can be dangerous, and their security will take care of it. That's my belief.
And just finally, as you know, the Tapa Emea membership consists of businesses of all sizes. But are the technologies that you've been highlighting today only relevant to the large global players?
No, I don't think so. I think it depends a little bit on the business model you're driving. So if you're running a small company, for instance, you might not discover everything within AI. But there are small patterns with regards to how do I scale my security level? Do I scale it up or down? And I think it just helps you, especially as a smaller company, it can help you to make your life easier.
Well, Jörg, thank you so much again for your presentation and for answering those questions.
Pleasure.
Thanks for coming into our studio.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Now, for our fourth session of the day, we'll soon be joined by Joe Ryan, VP of Intelligence at Overhaul. Now, the traditional intelligence cycle comprises of 5 elements: planning and direction, collection, processing, analysis and production, and lastly, dissemination and feedback. This cycle is normally applied to the 3 types of intelligence: strategic, operational, and tactical. When the type and purpose of intelligence is clearly defined and all 5 elements are followed, intelligence can be a powerful tool in the fight against cargo crime. However, is the current array of cargo crime intelligence products available in the industry today adhering to these tried and tested intelligence types and principles? Is cargo crime intelligence as effective as it could be? And what can we improve to enable decision makers at the strategic, operational and tactical levels to win the battle against increasing levels of cargo crime and become more resilient? Well, let's find out. Joe, welcome to the studio and over to you.
Thank you, Sam, and thanks for the opportunity to speak here today. As Sam said, I'm the VP of Intelligence in Overhaul, and Overhaul have just launched Intelligence as a Service. So I thought I'd use today as an opportunity to talk about what we believe intelligence is and where we believe intelligence is going in the industry. In the army, there's a joke that says military intelligence is a contradiction in terms, and I can understand that. Most people normally concentrate on intelligence failures, and they don't concentrate on the intelligence that is successful every day, because success can be hidden. But no matter what your understanding of intelligence is, the term intelligence has become very popular in boardrooms recently. In recent articles in The Economist and the Financial Times, they say more and more multinationals are acquiring the services of geopolitical risk advisors and intelligence specialists, because they are now exposed to broader risks and they want to understand what those risks are. So let's break down that hype and look at what a good intelligence program can bring the industry in general, and what that intelligence cycle looks like in a commercial world. Albert Einstein says that talking to yourself is a sign of intelligence, where answering yourself is a sign of insanity. One definition of intelligence. But the definition I like is intelligence is the direction, the collection, the processing, the analysis, and the dissemination of information to allow decision makers make timely and informed decisions. Now, the reason I like that definition is essentially it breaks down all the structural parts required to produce a valuable intelligence program within any organization. So before we move on, I'd really like to talk about the difference between intelligence and information. When we talk about intelligence, there are certain aspects that build up to that phase. The first thing we need to do is we need to pick an operational environment. In our case, it is the logistics and supply chain. So that's the environment that we're going to work on. Next, we're going to gather as much data as possible from as many sources as possible, and we're going to verify that information to make sure that it's real, especially in this time of false information. Then we process that data and we organize it into what we called structured information. Only when we have enough relevant, verified, structured information can we apply analysis to that information. And it is analysis that turns structured information into intelligence. So although we can have some automated data analysis, really if you want to move from structured information to analysis, you need an analyst. An analyst who is a subject matter expert in the operational environment that you choose to work in. So let's look at what is a typical cargo crime intelligence in the industry at the moment. And I've sort of simplified it a bit, but 8 trucks were stolen in the Netherlands, 20 trucks were stolen in Germany. So this is where we are collecting the data and verifying the data. Next, we start to structure that and we say more trucks are stolen in Germany than in the Netherlands, along this route, in this location, food and drink are the most stolen items, etc., etc. And we start structuring that information and processing it in that way. And then in some cases, more so at a high level at the moment, we say, what is the reason that those trucks were stolen in Germany? And that's where the analysis part comes in. So ultimately what we're trying to do is find a solution and define a plan for the action that we're going to take to mitigate these issues. And in terms of analysis, we want to find out who is doing it, when it's going to happen again, and how we are going to prevent it in the future. So those questions bring me to the next element, which is, how do we define analysis? So there are 4 different types of analysis, and depending on the direction that you have been asked to produce the intelligence, you're going to use one of these 4, or a combination of them all. So you have descriptive analysis, which is what happened. Then you have diagnostic analysis, which is why did it happen. You have prescriptive analysis, which is when is it going to happen again. And then descriptive analysis, which is what should we do about it. And an analyst should give those reports in those ways to the people who require them. So what I think is missing from the elements that we were talking about previously, which was the example I gave, what we're missing is direction, better analysis aimed at the people who need to receive it, and dissemination. How do we disseminate it to get it to the right people at the right time? So knowing the difference between the different elements of intelligence, let's go back and look at that typical example of intelligence that's in the industry. I'm going to set this in the military context first, so you can see how it makes sense. Okay, so, sorry. I've lost myself, of course I have. So in the military context, we will say there are 5 soldiers in a ditch in front of you preparing to attack your position. So that's operational data. It's analysis driven, and it's for a section commander, and it's called the execution phase. And what we want is the section commander to take action on that piece of intelligence that he has given. And that's why it's called the execution stage. Do something about this now. The next level up then is that there are special forces in the area with laser target designation. There's aircraft hunting, waiting for that, etc. So that's a tactical analysis. It's for a battalion commander, and it's the procedural phase. So he needs to start procedures that he has already practiced, or create procedures to go and find these people. What do I need to do that will prevent this happening? I need more anti-aircraft defenses, etc. So it's procedural. And then the last phase is XXX country are targeting your cyber infrastructure. It's strategic, it's advisory, and it's for a national defense committee. And what do we want them to do? We want them to have a policy around, we will put sanctions on this country, we will take an aggressive counter-cyber strategy, etc. And the important word here is that it's strategic. So we have the execution, we have the procedure, and we have the strategic elements. Now let's put that back into the supply chain context. There was 5 cargo thefts in this location in the past month by a known organised crime gang. Again, it's data driven, and it's for the driver. This is the execution phase. We want the driver to do something about this imminent threat. We want them to pick a different parking spot. We want them to move. This is a threat that he has to react to immediately. The next element, again, the tactical stage, slashing of curtain-siders parked in an unsecure parking spot constitutes just 70% of cargo crime along this route. This is this is tactical intelligence. It's analysis driven, and it's for a route planner. So the route planner should be looking at, what route should I take? Have I picked secure parking spots? Have I paid for them? Inform the driver of the modus operandi of thefts that happen along that route, and etc. So that's the action we want them to take. Lastly, there's the war has increased the cost of living by 9%. It has increased the scarcity and cost of certain items. This is strategic intelligence, advisory driven, and it's for the supply chain managers. And it's a policy stage again. The product has become more desirable than it was last year. It costs more. Criminals are targeting it. What additional policies are we going to take if we want to continue in this region, in this country? Do we abandon the country? What risk mitigation policy measures are we going to take? So, back to the basics. What is the purpose of cargo crime intelligence? Cargo crime intelligence, I'm going to say, is different to supply chain management, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But essentially, we're looking for operational, tactical, and strategic intelligence, and we want to aim that intelligence at the different levels of who is going to receive it. So operationally, we want to get that intelligence to the driver. Tactically, we want to get it to route planners. Strategically, we want to get it to policymakers so that they can mitigate risk at every level. So I believe cargo crime intelligence and supply chain risk management, which again I haven't spoken about in this presentation, it's in their infancy. I believe there are few companies out there that are receiving intelligence in that structured way, so they know how to disseminate it, and they disseminate it in a timely fashion to the people who need it, so that we are getting proper risk mitigation in place. I believe vendors like ourselves who are in this area, we're still working with data capture, we're still working with data verification, big data analysis, open source intelligence, etc., and producing what we believe that the market wants. But we're in this infancy period where the market mightn't be quite sure of what they want, and we're not quite sure of what to produce to give them. So we're growing in that area. So where can we improve on what we are currently doing? We need to have better clarity of purpose, and we need to direct analysts as to what you want, when you want it, and what type of intelligence that you need. We can collect more data. We need to have wider capture. We need to have better verification, and we need to include contextual data, which is there's a storm, there's a bridge down, there's a geopolitical issue, there's social unrest issues. Those type of delayed logistics is nearly as bad as stolen logistics in some cases. We can be better at processing the information. We can apply more filters, more types, and we can allow organizations self-service the data so that they can analyze it in the way that they need. And we need to be more structured in the analysis. We need to know exactly what analysis we are applying, and we need to know how to get that information to the driver, the planner, etc. At the moment, I don't believe that we are doing that. But what we also need is market feedback. We need the market to tell us, yes, that's valuable. You sent me that, I'd like this. And that's where this whole interest in intelligence is going to start building within the organization. So To sum up, I think intelligence capability is definitely made its way into the boardroom. And as practitioners and as users, we need to find a way to integrate intelligence into everyday decision making that is in that are in organizations. I'll go back 20, 30 years when health and safety was, I'll say, not considered as important. Now, no organization will embark on a program without health and safety taking a look at it. And I believe that's where intelligence needs to be. I believe, like my own appointment, VP of Intelligence, I believe there needs to be appointment within organizations with intelligence as a title. And it needs to get into every level of the organization, and it needs to be considered at every level, because we just saw it affects the driver, it affects the planner, it affects the people in the boardroom. So therefore we need a structure that is going to be able to do that. Did I overrun, Sam?
No, not at all. Thank you so much, Joe. Just coming on to thank you. And because you raised some really interesting points, and I think we've got a few minutes to just dive a little deeper into those. So you mentioned different terminologies, intelligence versus information, or cargo crime intelligence versus supply chain risk management. Why are these distinctions so important?
Yeah, to me, and maybe it's just a thing in me, but I really feel that terminology definitions is important, so that the client knows what they're asking for and the person producing it understands their definition and gives them that. At the moment, I think it's too broad a term, cargo crime intelligence, and we interchange cargo crime and supply chain. And to me, and other people, supply chain is about who you've used, your second tier, your third tier suppliers. How confident are we that this raw material is going to be available on this route to meet our just-in-time manufacturing? So when we're talking about cargo crime, we're talking about trucks on the side of the road being stolen. When we're talking about supply chain, we're talking about a whole different area. So supply chain to me is at more of a board level. How is this going to affect our manufacturing? Cargo crime is about trucks on the side of the road. So we can't interchange those.
Is there a way that we can be a bit clearer about the terminology? Is the industry itself?
Yeah, I think as an industry, and again, I believe that this is in its infancy, when we're producing intelligence, we have to say what type of intelligence it is. So if a facility was saying, we need some security technology, what does that mean? Does it mean access control? Does it mean an alarm? Does it mean CCTV? They wouldn't be so broad as to say, I need that. But at the moment, the industry, because intelligence hasn't matured, are going, I need intelligence. So as vendors, we need to say, this is the type of intelligence. I do CCTV. I do real-time execution intelligence. I will tell your drivers when to move. Or I do geopolitical intelligence, etc. So they have to be more clear, and maybe it's an education process for us both, but they need to be more clear about what they're asking for, and we need to be absolutely clear about what we're giving them and stop using these generalized terminologies.
What level of demand would you say there is for the type of solution that you've been describing?
Well, at the start I was saying there was interestingly, there was a report in the Financial Times, there was a report in The Economist, and from around 2017, company offices or company registration offices have seen an increase in the word intelligence in the description of it. So I think COVID has really brought this about. I think people wanted to know where their product was. When now that they know where it is, they're saying, well, what risks is it exposed to? And so I think it's become really, that's why I go back and talk about health and safety. I think intelligence is going to mature into that sort of health and safety must-have at every level and developed within the organisation.
And just finally, where can a solution like this really be taking us in the future? You know, how will it be relevant in a world where autonomous trucking is happening, or in a new era of drone deliveries? How is it applicable there?
Yeah. I think, like every service, it's going to develop. The interesting thing about intelligence is predictive intelligence is quite difficult. So that's why we get these intelligence mistakes. But so we're trying to chase the criminal or chase the threat constantly. And if we say that's a bad parking area, don't park there, and we're effective in telling people not to park there, well then the truck will move somewhere else. And criminals who can change and pivot their business plan much faster than we ever can will then start attacking there. So we're constantly moving. Autonomous trucks, people go, well, we won't have drivers parking where they're not meant to park, etc. But equally, I think the methodology will be you'll put a car in front of a truck and you'll slow down because the autonomous truck won't crash. You'll stop the truck and you'll rob it. You won't even have a driver to tell you that the truck is being stolen. So we'll advance in these areas where the market brings us. But that's where the industry, the intelligence industry, within the commercial area, need to constantly look at where the market is going. And that's why analysts are more important than ever. Not data analytics. You need an analyst. You need someone that will see the different aspects, bring it together, and then say, this is where I think we're going. We're always going to try to be predictive, but we're never going to get it 100% right.
Joe, thank you so much for your time today and for coming into the studio. It's been great having you. Thanks very much.
Great. Thanks very much.
Now, Overhaul is one of the Tapa Emea 2023 Premier Partners, which you can connect with right now if you visit our online exhibition. You'll find this in the navigation bar of the conference website. It's time now for another video presentation as we look at one of the biggest and most constant threats posed to supply chains by both organised and opportunist cargo thieves. The pursuit of theft-attractive products by organised crime groups, in particular, is unrelenting, and they are quick to capitalise on any perceived supply chain vulnerabilities. The catalyst for the surge in so-called jump-up thefts, which have plagued supply chains over the last few years, was a change to the distribution landscape, particularly of products such as tobacco, presenting an opportunity that criminal groups were quick to act upon. Now, in this special video presentation, Stuart Taylor, channel partner and account manager at Maple, looks at the challenges presented by jump-up thefts and discusses how operators are fighting back against this growing threat. So let's listen in. Stuart, over to you.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome.
Hello, I'm Stuart Taylor, channel partner and account manager for Maple Fleet Services, and today, with my colleague Paul Nunn, who's marketing manager for Maple, we're going to talk about how jump-up thefts have plagued the UK supply chain and how fleet managers have been able to fight back. Before we move on to that, I want to talk a little bit about the company that we work for and the emphasis that we place on research and development. So we're a team of between 50 and 60 people, and we have a large team of people that work within R&D. It's not just about the research and development of the products that we manufacture, but also the in-house testing that we conduct. And that is to make sure that we truly understand what our clients need and how robust the products need to be in order to keep the organised criminal gangs at bay from attacking your vehicles. As I say, we also invested a few years ago in a manufacturing facility that makes us more responsive and improves our lead times when it comes to providing products to our clients. And I'm pleased to say that next year we'll celebrate 50 years of business, having been formed in 1974, and we're a third-generation family business. I should also say we're very proud to have supported Tapa for almost 16 years as an SSP since 2007.
So, as Stuart says, today's session is going to focus on jump-up theft and how it's been targeting and affecting supply chains here in the UK for around about the last 5 or 6 years. The hallmarks of the modus operandi involve targeting final mile delivery vehicles, usually as they're en route to store or retail outlets. The offenders are focusing on the pursuit of theft-attracted product, and primarily this is going to be tobacco related. The tactic itself sees offenders approach vehicles as they are reaching their delivery points, usually during slow-moving traffic, when they're stationary at traffic signals, or even when they're at the store itself, when the driver may be involved with paperwork, or even has entered the store to notify the manager of his arrival. At which point, the offenders will literally jump up onto the rear of the vehicle and enter the cargo area to target the tobacco product. Thanks to some good work that's been done here by NAVSIS in the UK under Operation Ash, they've been mapping that threat and have been able to profile the offenders themselves as well. So we know of the near 1,000 reported incidents over the last 24 months, but the vast majority of those can be attributed to very specific small numbers of OCGs. It's also important to differentiate that a jump-up theft should not be classified in the same way of a theft from a moving vehicle or a Romanian MO that we often speak about. That is usually conducted at high speed, often with converted vehicles to facilitate that theft. But the jump-up theft is very different and shows very specific characteristics.
So let's examine a little bit about what the catalyst might have been for this type of crime to be conducted in the UK. Prior to 2017, there were ad hoc sporadic times where this happened. However, in 2017, a specialist and large distribution company within the UK called Palmer Harvey went into administration. And whilst it would be unfair to say that their clients, supermarkets and retailers, had not seen that coming, it would be probably quite accurate to suggest that they were ill-prepared to take on the role and responsibility of distributing those goods in the demise and the shadow of P&H. Effectively, Palmer and Harvey were a long-time client of Maple Fleet Services and had a fleet of vehicles which had been on a journey with us and other security providers to reinforce their vehicles. Effectively, we were providing a large different amount of product and equipment, which we can show you in the next slide. So we assisted Palmer and Harvey applying product to all of their different types of vehicles, which range from smaller vans to medium-sized rigid vehicles and large articulated trailers. On this particular slide, what you can see is we provided them with an alarm system which had a backup battery function, remote access control for the alarm system and the locking. There were two types of locks on the rear doors, one which looked at load integrity with digital seal numbers, and the other which focused more on pure robustness from a violent attack, and also a trailer immobiliser system which prevented the trailer from being collected incorrectly by the wrong driver or by a fictitious driver. On the rear doors, just out of interest, the locking was a bit of a journey in its own right, really, because we originally applied a single point lock at the top of the door, which was effective, but as the violence of the OCGs increased and as their techniques went from basic hand tools to battery powered tools to using forklift trucks even, we were in turn forced to apply additional locking at both sides of what it was a predominantly roller shutter door fleet. And then again a final and a third lock at the bottom handle, which really did create a robust application which stopped the OCGs in their tracks.
Let's now look with a little bit more detail at the series of jump-up thefts that have been affecting UK supply chains over the last 5 or 6 years and how that threat has evolved too. As we've heard, the first incidents were triggered by a change in the landscape for the distribution of tobacco across the UK region. As a consequence, we now saw a number of different carriers taking responsibility for their own delivery of tobacco into store locations. And as a result, it was something that the organised criminal gangs, the OCGs, were very quick to identify and act upon. Now, obviously, these carriers already had very well established distribution channels, but what they weren't experienced with was being targeted specifically by OCGs. As a consequence, the vehicles that they utilised had only very basic or low-level security measures in place. It was common to have things like cable seals, for example, that may give indication or notification that somebody had gained entry, but did little to deter or thwart any criminal activity. As a result of this, and as a consequence, we quickly found that a number of carriers were very highly exposed and were victims of quite a number of attacks in a very short period of time. Now, initially, the majority of those attacks could be confined or identified and mapped in the London region, probably motivated by the sheer volume of different carriers operating in that area, the numbers of vehicles on the roads, and the sheer weight of deliveries on a daily basis. As a consequence, as we say, carriers were soon subjected to frequent attack, and in many instances were suffering quite significant losses as a result of these attacks, almost on a daily or weekly basis. So before long, and understandably, the carriers started to adapt to this and started to implement measures to minimise the risk that they were faced with. Now, some of this were changes operationally, so we saw differences in the way that they would load tobacco on vehicles, for example. Initially, little consideration had been afforded to where that would be positioned or how it would be concealed. So better attempts to do that, to disguise where it was placed on the vehicle, to position it so it was further back against the bulkhead, for example, and therefore if perpetrators were successful in gaining entry to a cargo area, it was far more difficult and time consuming for them to find or locate the tobacco. The measures that carriers put in place also extended to physical deterrence as well. So we started to see padlocks introduced and key operated locks, for example, that hadn't previously been specified on their vehicles. But some of this may be considered reactionary, and little consideration was afforded to the methods of access control, for example. So with a large number of vehicles often on fleet for carriers, they had to consider what impact this would have on loading and unloading efficiencies. With a number of different people requiring access, a lot of operators therefore decided to implement suited keys or single key access. And this itself provided a vulnerability, in so much that one key enabled access to a number of different vehicles. Of course, it wasn't just the carriers that adapted, so too did the OCGs. Initially, when one carrier reacted to introduce different security measures or changes in procedures, they may have short-term success, and they managed to move that threat on to a different carrier. Often that was short-lived though. Although the OCG's focus may temporarily turn to another carrier, if they could identify vulnerabilities or weaknesses in any of the security measures that had been put in place, then they were quick to expose that. One such example can be traced back to key management, for example, as we've just mentioned. So some carriers implemented padlocks or key security locks, but they were hampered by single key operation. And there were numerous examples where we saw OCGs literally turn up with keys and gain access to vehicles. So the introduction of these new security measures almost worked against the carriers as a result of that. Now, as we mentioned initially, in the first few years of these number of attacks, the majority of incidents have been contained to the London area. But we've now seen plenty of examples where that threat has now migrated north as well. So we've seen incidents in the northwest and across over to the east coast in the Yorkshire regions as well. We've also seen OCGs undertake their own surveillance, conducting stakeouts outside distribution centres, identifying vehicle routes, and in many cases they've been captured trailing those vehicles often for quite some distances, to 2-3 hours at a time, before they're able to identify an opportunity to carry out one of the jump-up style techniques. So we can see that there have been a number of changes over this last 5 or 6 years. We can see and map the evolution that has happened during this period of time as well. I think one of the clear things that we can take from this, that it is important that carriers assess the risk. It is important they make procedural changes, and it's important that when they do put security measures in place, that they are fully considered, they are suitable, and they are fit for purpose. Otherwise, that threat is going to come back around. We're going to see this cyclical effect continue. And I'll hand over to Stuart, who will look at that in a bit more detail with you.
Okay, so we've talked about the problem, why it's occurred, the journey that some of the carriers that have been on in a probably a reactive way. Let's talk about the solution, if there is such a thing. It would be folly for me to stand here and say now that you can purchase a service or a product from us or from any other company that would act as a silver bullet and make all the problems go away. It's not the case. The reality of the situation is that it needs a layered approach, as with all security decisions and considerations. There needs to be a multitude of tangible physical products, some services and some back-end processes that bring together a cohesive solution to really combat and fight against these OCGs. Having said that, the way that we choose to break that down within Maple Fleet is to look at 3 core fundamentals that should be considered before making a decision. So in our world, that is starting with physical security. What is the physical, let's say, lock or alarm or immobilizer that is suitable for the vehicle type that you've got? And I'm privileged to work for a company that's got a broad product offering built up over the last 50 years that can cater for a small van, a truck, a trailer, a tractor unit. You kind of name the type of container or application that you've got, and there is a very good chance that we've already got a product that we've designed in the last 50 years that will cater for that. And if we haven't already got it, as I said earlier, we've got an extensive R&D facility, both electronic and mechanical, that can cater for that. So that's one element of it. The second element for me is probably the most interesting, because I think it's the element which is least considered, given the least consideration, certainly in a reactive way, and that's access control. So if we do consider that fleets have been plunged into the idea of having to carry a high-risk product at short notice because of the administration of a pre-existing provider like Brown and Harvey, yes, they were able to quickly retrofit locking apparatus to their rear doors, as an example, but that brought another problem with it, because what they decided to do in a very reactive way was have either one key or a key suite of limited key numbers to hundreds, if not thousands, of vehicles. So can you imagine a situation where you've got 1,500 trucks, but then tens of thousands of the same key profile in circulation in retail outlets, shopping centres, distribution centres, maybe with the vehicles themselves, with the drivers. And that in its own right is a headache for any operator. So we take a great focus and emphasis on access control and which is going to be the right type of solution for your business. So we will spend a long time talking to you, not only about locking the doors or providing an alarm system or an immobilizer like that, but then understanding which access control is going to have least impact operationally for you and present a limited amount of risk. And the third kind of pillar of cargo security that we would talk about then is data and the role that data is going to play. So, as I said at the beginning of this, there's no silver bullet. So if we work on the basis that there will be the worst possible day, there will be a situation, even with this physical security and access control there is still a day where you lose some product, where a trailer is stolen, where an alarm doesn't sound for some reason. Okay, what tools have we then got to give you to help your business understand why that happened, how to get your cargo back, and how to prevent it again happening in the future? And the answer to that is the data. So we record the door open and closed events, seal number changes, which key was used, whether it was a key or whether it was done remotely. There can be CCTV inputs, telemetry. So that data then really takes the application of not just a product, but turns it into a full system which can be layered on top of your fleet. And then in this slide, we really take what is discussed as a concept, if you like, those 3 pillars, those 3 concepts for discussion, and we kind of turn it into what is effectively hardware. So in the first picture, what you can see is it happens to be a barn door, but we do the same for a roller shutter door, which is a twin freight lock application. So the lock is internally mounted in what we would deem to be the clean, dry area of the vehicle, rather than being on the outside and exposed to that danger. It's also more secure by being on the inside. Okay, but there's a lock at the bottom of the door and a lock at the top. And it's those little bit of details that we've learned over the last 50 years that really help us give an edge. So when we see those jump up thefts, one of the things that when we've watched that footage back is we can tell that yes, the thieves will carry hand tools. It might be even a battery operated hand tool. What they don't tend to carry are ladders. And whilst that might sound kind of humorous. The reality is if the locking solution that you have is internally mounted and at the top of the door, that does make it all the more difficult for that criminal to gain access to your fleet. The middle picture is an example of a type of access control that we have. Just one example. That's key validation, and that was something that was developed relatively recently for a large UK supermarket, a retailer, who suffered exactly this kind of attack and didn't want to integrate telemetry and didn't want the complexities that sometimes come up with remote access control, but still wanted a situation where they could have a large number of vehicles with our product fitted, but then have an even larger number of RFID tags in circulation, but without the risk of those tags being lost or stolen and posing a risk of somebody else having access to their vehicles. So what we designed was a validation unit, whereby when the driver is given the keys to their vehicles at the beginning of the shift, their Maple fob, their RFID tag, is validated for a predetermined amount of time. So if it's lost in that time frame, let's say that's 12 hours, yes, there is a 12-hour window of opportunity, but beyond that, there is no opportunity for a would-be criminal to access their fleet of vehicles in any way. And you could argue that that's not perfect because it still gives them a window, and that's true. But it's trying to find a balance that looks after budget, that looks after lead time, because this product needs to be rolled out very quickly, and also has as little impact as possible on the operations of the pre-existing business. And the third image there is an example of our web portal. So again, where all of these other facets of the product come together, the access control and the physical lock itself, that's then delivered within the web portal so that our client can dial in at any time and understand who accessed the vehicle, how long it was accessed for, and lots of other pieces of information as well. So I think that just leaves me really to say to you, ask you the question of whether you believe your fleet is well covered with regards to those three core principles of cargo security, and to thank you for joining us today. And if you do have any questions, then you can contact us. Thank you.
And thank you to Stuart and the team at Maple for their insight into a topic that will be of particular interest to many of our delegates tuning in today. And once again, as Maple is one of Tapa Emea's 2023 Premier Partners, you can meet them now in our virtual exhibition if you'd like to know more. Now, in today's interconnected world, supply chain security has never been more critical. Tapa is, of course, at the forefront of helping to protect global supply chains from theft and damage, but integrating Tapa's processes directly into a customer's transport operations is often overlooked. By seamlessly integrating Tapa standards, companies can not only enhance the security of their goods, but also streamline their operations. And this is certainly the view of our next speaker, Eduardo Garassini, CEO of Gessenflot by TDI. Speaking to us from Gessenflot's base in Spain, he explores the customer's perspective of supply chain security, delving into real-world examples to highlight the tangible advantages that businesses can gain by aligning their transport operations with Tapa's standards to ensure the resilience of their supply chains in an ever-evolving and complex global landscape. Eduardo, it's over to you.
Hello everyone, I'm Eduardo Garassini, the CEO from Gessenflot by TDI. We are a technology partner for transport fleets present around all Europe, and we are Tapa Premium partners since this year. Our journey with Tapa started about 3-4 years ago when we were the first ones implementing Tapa in the Spanish market. We are a company that focuses on telematic solutions and fleet management solutions for the transport fleets. So we started implementing the TSR certificate and different levels, level 1, 2 and 3, in several of the most important fleets in Spain. And since then we have grown with Tapa to become their premium partners in Europe. And that's the reason why we want to tell you a little bit about our learnings in the past years, and what we think is the most important steps and issues to address when a company wants to be certified by Tapa, especially the TSR certification, which is the one that we are specialized in. So when a company is thinking about becoming a Tapa certified company, it is very important to think about the users, final users, right? Not only to understand what's the standard, what is the certification and the processes that need to be adapted, but also at the same time, it's very important for the company to think how their final users are going to be implementing these processes and these standards into their day-to-day work. And that means what are the software tools and technology that is required to integrate these standards into their day-to-day life and work processes. So if we approach a company, a transport company, there will be three main pillars in which the Tapa will be involved in their processes. The first one is the planning, transport planning. Second one is the execution of the planning, and third is the monitoring and track and trace of this planning. So these are the three main pillars of the processes, and each of them it's done through a different software. Usually when you approach a transport company, you have the TMS software or the ERP where the planning process is being done. Then you have the driver's app where you have the execution of the missions planned and by the driver, and finally you have the fleet management system where you do the track and trace and the follow-up of the planning, right? And you manage the alarms and connect it to other interested parties. So these three pillars are key, and all of them usually are integrated, and they need to be integrated in order to flow the information between one another. And when we're talking about Tapa standards, that means that some of these processes has to be adapted, and some new things have to be included into the company's processes in order to be certified. So for us, one of the main suggestions that we do for the final customer is really understand how are you doing your processes right now, how are they connected, and what tools are you using, and then how can you really integrate what Tapa requirements into your own processes. For example, when you're talking about the planning process, the most important here will be route planning for Tapa. For example, you need to plan specific routes. You need to be able to monitor the state of the routes, to monitor the state of the security in the route that you're planning, to plan specifically where the stops are going to be made on this trip, because they need to be done in a Tapa certified parking, for example. So there are a lot of interactions that are happening between the current software that you're using to plan and some added information like what are the current Tapa certified parkings that are available for this trip, what are the current state of the routes that you want to use. So all of this is provided by Tapa already, and the key is to have it integrated within your own process and your own systems. And once it is planned, you will move to the second part, which is okay, now that the trip is planned, you need to execute it, and that execution is in hands of the driver usually, and drivers need to have very clear guidelines if we want them to accomplish what is required by Tapa, right? You need to do checklists, you need to prepare the driver to understand what are the checklists that need to be done. They need to have the right tools to execute the checklist, to prepare the truck and the trailer before departing on a trip. And for that, having everything integrated in a driver's app that allows them not to think, but just to follow easy steps during the way, it's key to implementing a successful Tapa standard. And finally, once these missions are starting to be accomplished, there are also requirements on how to follow up, how to track and monitor what is actually happening while the driver is delivering these goods. So for that, you have a fleet management system that the most important part to comply with Tapa is having a very strong and robust alarm management system, meaning that you need to monitor what is happening currently and recurrently, so you can obtain the information, and if anything happens that it's outside of the plan, you raise an alarm. That alarm reaches the person responsible within the company, but at the same time reaches, if it's necessary, an alarm monitoring center that is approved by Tapa and that can act by calling the police or giving assistance to the driver. And so all this requires two very important things. The first one is integrating the Tapa standard within your own processes, and that means to integrate it within your own systems that you're using, your softwares, and then that these softwares need to also be seamless integrated within each other. So you make sure that the information is flowing, and so you are able to monitor everything in real time, and that not only you are complying with what Tapa is requiring, but you're also able to respond in real time if anything happens, and to have a seamless transport experience for your final customers, which is basically the main reason why transport companies are following up on the Tapa requirement, because they want to give the best quality of service and the best secure transport to their final customers. So I focus on this because we have seen many standards to come into companies, like the ISO 9001, which for many years became just a certification tool that really wasn't alike as the company's real processes. So final users weren't following the recommendations and processes defined by the standards. So you will have the ISO 9001 standard and then the actual processes of the company separated. And in the last years, this has been changing because the regulation adapted to be more flexible and to integrate within the company's processes. And at that point, they reached what they were looking for, which is having a standard that is actually implemented in the real processes of the company and not separated and just being audited as once a year, and then it just becomes a carpet. You don't want to have the Tapa carpet, the Tapa file somewhere, and then the company doing something else. It's very important for the documentation, the regulation, the audit to be really focused on what the people is doing every day. And for that, my recommendation to all the candidates to be Tapa certified, or the companies that are already certified, if you want to improve in your implementation of these standards, it's to have a technology partner that can help you integrate those standards into your own processes and systems, and to make sure that that integration is also done between the different systems in your ecosystem. And so that will be my recommendation to all. I hope you enjoy the rest of the Tapa conference, the rest of the speakers, which are great, and thank you for this opportunity. Bye-bye. So the typical challenges that a customer faces when implementing Tapa, I think are related to what we were speaking before. It's how to adapt the current processes and systems to what Tapa requires. Because Tapa is not only implementing different security systems into the warehouse and the trucks, it's also about changing their own processes, how they plan their trips, how they monitor the trips, how do they execute the trips through the drivers. So there are a lot of changes in the actual processes of transport, and that requires for them not only to know what are the standards and processes to be changed, but having the right tools to implement it, and for the final user, that can be the traffic officer or the driver itself, to have the tools and be able to follow up on these processes that the standards apply. And I think the best way to overcome this challenge, again, I say, is to have a good partner, a technology partner that can help you integrate those changes and those standards into your actual processes and tools that you use to monitor them. So the main role of technology is to integrate again these requirements from Tapa into the day-to-day processes and day-to-day operations of the company. Also, it is to adapt the structure, the infrastructure of the company to what Tapa requires, because you need to have specific security requirements on the parking sites, on the warehouse operations and the transport operations. So that means to install hardware that needs to comply with specific requirements for Tapa. So you need the hybrid of a hardware technology provider that gives you all the infrastructure needed, but also at the same time that it's able to integrate this infrastructure and the processes that are required by Tapa into your own transport processes and warehouse processes and day-to-day life of your employees. And so I think it really requires a holistic approach as a technology partner, not only focus on hardware or software or integration, but it's a combination of the three of them, and to have a holistic view of what's required and how to follow up from the first minute when you need to plan the trip till you execute it, and then you monitor it and make sure it arrives properly and safely to the final customer. So I think the biggest future trend that it's going to change the paradigm of transport is the introduction of autonomous trucks into the transport operations. It's something that we have already seen partly in the ADAS systems and support systems to the driver, but for me in the next 3 to 5 years definitely the biggest change will be the inclusion of fully autonomous trucks into the day-to-day operations of transport companies. And so this will require a combination of driver usage for loading, unloading, and some of the activities, preparing the truck, and then for the long-haul transport, the truck will go alone without a driver and completely autonomous. So that means that you will not have to stop as many times, you don't have to sleep in places, the truck can go directly from point A to B independently of how far it is. So, but also it will need adapting on the Tapa standards, on the security standards and the security measures taken to make sure that technology alone, without the support of a driver, it's able to maintain the security that is required. So definitely we will face some challenges into how to create new infrastructure, new tools, both in hardware and software that can support the autonomous trucks to be included into the security transport. But I think it's one of the solutions that will guarantee sustainability for the drivers in the future and also for transport operations for long haul specifically. And in terms of security, I think the technology is ready to prepare the truck and the trailer to be fully autonomous without breaching the security standards. And so it is our job as the technology partners to provide that technology and together with Tapa to define the new standards that will apply in cases where autonomous trucks will be present. And so we give already the final package to the customer and make a seamless and smooth transition into a new paradigm or a new business model which require for them to have autonomous trucks into their operations.
Many thanks to Eduardo and his team at Gessenflot. And once again, if you want to know more, do visit our virtual exhibition where you'll find contact information for Gessenflot and 13 other leading suppliers of supply chain security products and services. Next, let's take a look at so-called insider crime, which is another major risk for companies across the end-to-end supply chain and is one of the topics about to be considered by our next speaker, Peter Stenlund, CEO of Altida. In our final presentation, he'll be discussing what motivates employees to commit cargo crime in a presentation that also looks at the manipulation of systems, thefts, fraud and forgery of documents, giving examples at both ends of the financial impact scale. Peter will also look at attacks on first and last mile deliveries as well as destination facilities. It all sounds really interesting, so I'm very excited to welcome Peter to the studio. Peter, thank you so much. The stage is yours.
Thank you, Sam, and thank you for taking your time and watching this session. I will walk you through. My background is I'm working with helping companies securing the transportation fleets of different kind of parts. So please buckle up and get ready to share and listen to the information. I will tell you about some true stories. Criminals on the inside, we are used to think that they're coming from the outside with the locks and access control, but they are already on the inside. So how we protect ourselves and our businesses and colleagues and shareholder values with this fact. Multi-channel attacks, manipulation of the systems and fraud. We will have a look on this. So the insiders are weak spots. Make any organization vulnerable. Sorry about that. The consequences, threats and potential targets. That means if you have an insider, one or more persons who are already inside the company, they will become a weak spot since they are the easy way to get into an organization to commit cargo crimes or fraud in the organization, and that makes the system very, very hard to detect or to find out who is the way in, and especially if it's a group and you don't know if they have connection to each other or if they are independent operating. And blackmail and other kind of violent threats, financial threats, are really common challenges to deal with, which are not so easy. So, multi-channel attacks, manipulation of the security systems. When the target is selected, it's automatic shifting here. When the target is selected by the perpetrator, the bad guy, bad organization, the local, regional and global effects can be very obvious when they are using the alarm system, access control, locks and access to control to restricted areas, warehouse and social media. They don't need to manipulate those systems as traditionally, because they are already inside if they get help from one or multiple persons. They are authorized, and that's the scary thing here. If they are authorized, you cannot detect, you don't get any alarm system operating that can produce any alerts, and the access control will be flawless open, and the locks are open, and the restricted areas become open, and warehouse become open, social media becomes open. That means the messaging interactions on social media can make a very, very powerful damage, because if they are on the inside, you can't protect it that easy. And if we go further down to attacks, there can be fast attacks, direct attacks, and they will all affect globally. Cyber attacks, definitely. Then we have hacker tools available at software as a service. We have attacks to routers and installations in offices. Network and cloud are available. And database info, customer suppliers, IP, etc. Everything is wide open if the guys are on the inside already. And they have access and they are authorized. So it's the easiest way in for the intruders. And the global attacks is very, very hard to prevent and even harder to fix if they are already there. So for instance, if somebody attack your organization that way using the inside people, it's very, very challenging to prevent. Then we have on the first and last mile, we have At the supply chain side, we have the drivers. They are a very obvious risk. Sorry. They can do damage in many ways. One thing is very common challenge. They can do the mapping, they can do an inventory listing, and they can commit thefts by themselves. But many times they're just doing the part of the crime process. They're doing the mapping and inventory listing, and then they come with a separate team, and mostly a team of people. They do the theft and commit the crime, and then they can also manipulate the alarms and the locks and access control in advance by doing different things towards the hardware and also the software. And that includes cameras. They can make cameras and all hardware software installations useless, completely useless. So when it's time for an attack, they are confident that nothing will happen, nobody will get alerted, and they have a free ride to commit the crime. And the small thefts with just one driver grabbing a thing or two, that's not the big deal. The big deal is the inventory listing and the system and the process here. And if they have last mile and first mile route, they can be in multiple places and do the crime. On the receiver side, we see here on the image we have tomatoes, and there was a claim on one pallet load full of pallets, one truck load with pallets of tomatoes, and they claimed them to be rotten and bad and damaged. But in real life, it was not. It was only a few tomatoes in one single pallet. And at the call, they claimed and said, okay, now we have this claim, so we need to get assistance with solving this issue. Okay, when can we come and make the inspection? So in this case, nothing happened, but they had to go to court because they were trying to fulfill the fraud. It was a fraud committed by the receiver of cargo. So the threat is on the inside and authorized. You see the green light on where on the lock and access control. How can we reduce the risk and damages? Is it possible to prevent the losses? Can we protect the assets and reduce the damages? It's the answers are not easy. We will look into that. Yes, it is possible, but it's hard, it's challenging, and we can't do it really with small effort. Who is on the inside? How did they get there? Why and when? And we have the drivers, we have the route planner, sales manager, CFO, and some extra. And this is the most challenging thing, that we can have people in different people and stakeholders in different positions doing the job on the inside. And here we have a true story based on the sales manager first. It was thefts, forgery, and fraud. Why? You can ask yourself about that. Well, the thefts was, for instance, one thing was discovered by the accounting. The bookkeeping, since the bookkeeper was notifying that on the travel expenses bill, they notified that they were filling up diesel for 100 liter almost, but the tank volume was only 78 liter. So it was very obvious a problem, but bookkeeping was asking, I don't understand this, how is it possible? Then the next time with the same person, it started with a small theft. The next time it was a trip from south of Sweden to Norway via Stockholm and Örebro. And they were in the morning they started with full tank, and then after 3 hours driving, the tank was filled up again, and then it ended up in Oslo, fill up the tank again. But just 2 hours before reaching Oslo, there was also a receipt in the bill, in the accounting, and so it was 2 hours after in the south of Sweden at the same time, almost, only 2 hours difference. So then we discovered that it was the wife of the sales manager who was filling up the private car. And then it was the tip on the iceberg, and then we also found out they were buying telephones, cell phones, and on the company bill, and it was a forgery of contracts, documents, and also receiving bathrooms and building construction material for the summer house. And it was probably not meant to be from the first place, but it turned out to be so. They wanted to have more effort than it was offered through the salary. Now we get to the sales manager was kicked out of the company, of course, and police came in. But that was nothing bigger. This one is really a big one. It was 150 million euro turnover company with 300 trucks. The CEO and CFO in that company committed fraud big time, and they served time in jail, 3 years and 9 months, and the penalty was in court raised to 13.5 million euro. And it was not meant to be at the first time. It was a fast-growing company. They were lacking money, and they borrowed products from the customers. They were transporting different kind of valuables and assets, and they were borrowing from the customers' assets, and those assets were used in this case. The problem was not when they were growing. The problem was to discover this when during that period when they were growing. When they stopped growing, the real problem occurred because they couldn't take anything without getting caught. So they got caught and with the fingers in a jelly box, jelly can, and this was really a sad story because they have really done a good job from the first time. But the growth, fast growth, and the possibility to help the company, they took the chance. But the problem, the reality came across, and they have to pay back this. How can we protect the shareholders and stakeholders? Well, we need to do the business risk analysis very carefully. And if the CEO and CFO is there as stakeholders making all the decisions, we need to create a process and focus on uptime for the business. If that's the driving force, and financial department must always be a part of this action. And because it's normal that they have control points, and internal and external personnel, not the accountant. That's not what I'm talking about. We need to have an external person assisting the team doing this control and setting up the process. And it has to be a secure process, and a lot of practice and training by different people, and not the two same people, CEO and CFO. That's not working. We know that now. The problem is also this kind of a disaster. We don't really have so easy to follow this before it's too late. So, and all the access control and all that, it doesn't work. It's useless when this is not in place. So this has to be in place. Then it's easy to discover much earlier, so the damages can be reduced. And here is an example. It's a risk to be first to stand out and protect the asset. Why is that? Well, if you see this one, it's like a shining light. One guy is totally different than all the others. Why is that? So if the bad guys see one standing out, it's more interesting to interact with that one, and it's a sitting duck actually. So if you have a lock installation on your truck or trailer, it's easier to pick that one if you are the first one. But if it's like this, it's the last one. It's also a risk, but so it's good to play in the middle. And if you are go with the flow, sort of. So if you're alone from beginning or at the end, it's not very good. So balance of risk and reward. It's a balance between pain, cost, risk, and reward. thefts of diesel is not a problem? If so, how to prevent? Well, to be very honest and true, it's not the problem with diesel theft. It's not anything you can help with locks or security devices. It's a question of routine. Because the experience says so. We know that now since about more than 20 years. Don't put any locks or devices on the tank if you're afraid of getting damages, because the damages can increase and be much higher than the damage of by stealing diesel, 450-liter diesel. So keep the less possible diesel in the tank and change the routines. Never leave the trucks or park the trucks with full tank. That's the solution of that. Then you will have easiest possible way. So avoid the worst issues, prepare, practice and repeat. And thank you for attention. And that's my speech.
Peter, thank you so much for joining us today and
Thank you.
coming into the studio.
Thank you.
We have a couple of questions that I could ask you very quickly before you leave us.
Yes.
What are the best ways to prevent multi-channel attacks and manipulation and the challenges that need to be overcome?
Yes, it's not very easy answer, but one thing which is very crucial, you need to have a controlled process, and you need to involve finance department always, because they have it as a job to do the accounting, and that's the way it starts, always with a small ticket like 10 euro or something. And if you train them and practice a lot, they will be even more skilled and better to discover. And then you make systems that not one person have all the power. You need to disarm the power from one person and divide it to many people. And also external, which have no dependencies to the company.
And how difficult is it for organizations to protect themselves from the threat of insider crime?
Oh, that's really, really tricky, because normally you can't do that without training. You need to have education, training, and practice. And practice is the training where you do this and simulate the different scenarios. That's the only way to protect yourselves. And it doesn't mean you can protect 100%, but you can reduce the risk. And by doing this, you send a message to the outside that we are working with this and we have high alert. So probably you're not going to be the black sheep there. You're going to be among them, the other ones. So they will select another one. You can hope for that.
And just finally, how would you explain the balance between the different levels of pain, cost, risk and reward in the supply chain security process?
Yeah, it's the question you always have to ask yourself. Is it better to have this, put this on at risk, or should we invest in protection systems? But don't invest in protection systems without educating, training and practice the software. That means the people. So that's the way. And the diesel thefts, it's a very good example. Not too much protection. That's not good, because it will cost many times more. And too low cost, it will also be bad, because you lose a lot of diesel, and that uptime will go down on that kind of vehicle. And the fleet in a big fleet, it will be a bigger cost. So the balance there, sleep with the parking, empty tanks, that's the cheapest, best way, as most secure way to keep the balance.
Well, Peter, thank you so much again for your interesting presentation and for coming into the studio and answering those questions as well.
Thank you very much, Sam, and thank you for the time.
Thank you. See you again soon.
See you.
Well, we've heard from a fascinating group of speakers already today from across the supply chain security spectrum. And in just a moment, we'll be taking a closer look at what Tapa Emea is doing to support the association's members in their constant battle to mitigate supply chain security risks and prevent product losses, as we look at Tapa's progress in 2023 and goals for 2024. Now, 2023 has been a great year as well for Tapa events. So before we hear what's lined up for next year, let's cast our minds back to sunny Amsterdam.
Welcome to the Tapa Emea conference here in sunny Amsterdam. We will spend the next 1.5 days really together with more than 500 industry experts to discuss supply chain resilience.
It's hard to remember a greater time of risks to global supply chains. We live and work in a volatile, uncertain and disrupted world. The global pandemic has finally eased, only to be replaced by a war in the EMEA region. the rise of activism, staff shortages in key industries, and of course, rising levels of cargo crime. Everywhere we look, we see the resilience of businesses and their supply chains tested like never before.
We're going to give you 2 fantastic days, we believe.
We have an amazing lineup of speakers and panelists.
Come and see it for yourself. Try it out, get a real feeling, and talk to people that are already part of that community, because they can give you the best insight.
And I'm still very proud and extremely proud to say that Tapa Emea, and Tapa is the only association which provides you an end-to-end supply chain. We have everybody. We have the manufacturers, the shippers, the logistic service providers, ocean, rail, air, whatever you want, because we connect the dots and we mitigate the risk to the minimum level within your industry.
Today, we are joined by a panel of experts ready to share their views on supply chain risks and resolutions.
The problem is speed. The problem is cost and the ever-changing environment in which we are operating. We need to learn more. We need to be innovative, disruptive, and that's also what the expectation from us of forums like this is.
Sustainability is a key topic. Most probably you've spoken yesterday about security, resilience.
To every complex solution, the proverb says there is always a simple solution that doesn't work. But I'm a strong believer in the fact that there is always also a simple solution that does work.
This is why we have embedded the Tapa standards within our supply chain standards.
Socialize, network. It is great to see everyone again.
It doesn't matter if it's manufacturers, if it's logistic service providers,
vendors, but also the suppliers, but also the peers.
It's for the members, it's for the exciting presentations.
There's a lot of potential to cooperate, to learn.
That's an integral part of the culture of Tapa.
We ride a fantastic wave at the moment.
Let's work together and be disruptive because we have a shared enemy.
We have to transition from yesterday to today and think of tomorrow and be very adaptable and resilient.
Let's fight against the criminals targeting our supply chain.
As we accelerate into the future of supply chain resilience.
The personal relationship that it builds and allows and enables, and I think this is one of the greatest benefits that you as a member can get from Tapa.
What are you waiting for? The benefits come as you are part of the process.
You have to join just one conference and you're going to leave Taparized.
I'm Taparized.
I'm Taparized.
Totally Taparized.
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 How can you not be Taparized?
Well, I'm delighted to welcome back to the studio Torsten, Marcel and Marcus to fill us in on what's been happening in 2023 and look ahead to 2024. Gentlemen, thank you all so much for being here. Now, Torsten, let me start with you. In terms of how Tapa Emea helps its members to protect their supply chains, what would you say have been the association's main achievements this year in 2023?
I think in 2023, if you look at really what Tapa really rolled out, it was an outstanding year. So first of all, the standards, a huge team, especially from the members, for the members, worked on revising the standards on a global perspective. So that's for me really achievement number one, crystal clear. And I think it's also quite important that we always drive the digitalization. And if you look at what we digitalized only in 2023, it's another milestone what we really achieved. So some of the stuff you don't see, but it's really also to be prepared for the future and future workload and future challenges. But it's also quite important that we look always for more solutions, new solutions. And as said by myself already yesterday and also by Marcus, look at the new training, look at, the avatar technology. And as already said, it's quite important that, we look, for example, now at more languages, growing our footprint. We go into more countries. I think it's also important to mention, again, the TIS tool. We are now in TIS 1.5, so it's the 5th revision in 12 months' time. And last but not least, we have seen an unbelievable, exceptional growth in the membership. Plus, we are more and more seen really as the experts in supply chain resilience within Europe, Middle East and Africa, but also in a global perspective.
And we'll pick up on some of those points and dive into them a bit further. The first one, Marcel, let me come to you on. You've attracted, as Torsten said, a lot of new members in the past 2 to 3 years. Why is it so important that Tapa Emea continues to grow?
As Torsten always says, is that Tapa is a family. And if you have a big family, the chance of your, let's say, to cascade and expand your legacy and bring it forward and maintain it is always much, much better. But it definitely expands our network. And from new industries, it's also giving us new angles, new ideas to look at, and actually educates us as well. And that's the main thing, is that, so the expansion of the network, but also the connections to the outside world, like law enforcement, etc. So that's why it is so important.
Marcus, let me come to you now, because as you said yesterday, the new 2023 revisions of FSR, TSR and PSR are now live. So what will be the next priorities for the standards and training team in 2024?
Yeah, of course. We were really busy this year. Now, the next step, we are working on all the translation of the standard, translation of more training material, but we are also keeping our focus on the guidance documents. And we know we have the locking guidance document, the CCTV guidance document. Yesterday we launched the multi-site guidance document. Yeah, there's a lot of work in front of us, so we are not running out of work. And that's our focus also for early next year.
Torsten, let me come back to you. TIS is obviously an important tool for members, but there's still potential to develop TIS further. In what ways are you going to be doing that? Or is there?
I think there's always potential, you know, and what is for me always quite important is that everything what we do, you know, it's not a race. So there's no finish line. And it's the same like when we go for the training. We have an amazing training. We invested amazing, really energy, manpower, thinking out of the box. And that's exactly what we do also in TIS. So be ready for the next release. It's TIS 2.0. It will be live on the 2nd of January 2024. And my idea, for example, and the idea from the team, but also the feedback from the members, is really to enhance more features into the TIS tool. So to make it really more attractive for the members and say, you don't need, for example, to go to another tool. We embed more solutions into our own tool. So a specific example, and we are really at the beginning. So it's not something what will be ready in the next 3 months, but you go to TIS, you look for a parking place, and you can click on one link and you go directly to the booking platform. So it's really a kind of a really connect the dots strategy project, but that's only one example, you know, and more to come.
And you hinted yesterday that Tapa APAC is subscribing to Tapa Emea's TIS system. Does this also provide any impact or benefits for Tapa Emea's members?
It's an amazing benefit. It's an amazing benefit for all regions, you know, for APAC and for EMEA, because, you know, when you're an EMEA member, you can see the APAC data. And when you're an APAC member, you can see the EMEA data. So the transparency will give you really a complete footprint in both regions. And as you also know, we also collect data from outside both regions. So when an EMEA member is reporting something what is not in our region, we still cover that, and vice versa. So the transparency and the benefit for both regions is really, it's amazing. It's an amazing opportunity. And it's not only incidents. Let's have in mind that from now on, you as an EMEA member can see also all the FSR certifications in APAC, the TSR certifications, the GSR certifications, and also, you know, all new future standards will be completely visible in one tool.
Marcel, let me come back to you quickly. How important would you say it is for Tapa Emea to be the voice for the supply chain industry in relation to cargo crime risks and resilience?
Our bare existence was because everyone had the same issue in the industry. And that's why we combined forces within Tapa to address that. And okay, maybe our scope has broadened a bit, not only on crime, but more on resilience as well. And so we want to be, let's say, the voice for our members towards governments, Brussels, law enforcement, etc. And I think we're already doing a great job at it, but we can always improve, of course. So.
Torsten, earlier today, Joe Ryan spoke about the importance of clarity and consistency in terms of terminology and definitions. Is that something that Tapa Emea can be helping with?
Oh, absolutely. So just to give you one idea, so more than 10 years ago, we already were sitting together with Europol and with several police forces. And what we did was in IIS, now TIS, we standardized our reporting format according to the need of Europol. So we really are 100% aligned with Europol. And Joe was absolutely right. Unfortunately, sometimes you say this, but you mean that. And due to the reason that we are an industry association, and as already said by Marcel, we are the voice of the industry, so we can collect it, we can combine it, we can align and communicate to all members and all the industry representatives. This is what we should call it, and this is the way forward. Absolutely.
And is cargo crime awareness now in the C-suite? And if so, how can Tapa Emea benefit from this?
From my point of view, I strongly believe it is. It's not only because of Tapa, of course. If you look at the world right now, if you look at all the regulations, if you look at the NIS from a European perspective, if you look at, like for example, the CRITIS regulation, there are a lot of regulations now where the CEO is aware of, but he's also liable. And that's really quite important. And what is for me always quite important, what is for the Tapa team always quite important, that people do understand security is really a profit center. And that's something what we need still to drive into the C-suite. I love the picture, actually I'm also from a Tapa member, and Carsten Grieshammer, greetings to Carsten. He was creating a picture where you see the iceberg, but he really created it, on a way where the C-suite is seeing, the typical stuff. They see the guards, the access control, the barriers, the CCTV system. So this is the typical visible security. But the majority, as you know, is below the sea level. And if you look at this is what we need to transfer to the C-suite. And that's for us as Tapa very important. So we still have a way ahead of us, but I think what is also quite important, they already listen to us. A lot of the meetings I personally do have are really already in the C-suite and also on the ministry level and on the CEO level to really explain to them why a proactive resilience and risk mitigation process is better than react when it's already actually happened.
Marcus, let me come back to you. A lot of your focus with the standards continues to be on the local language standards translations and training materials as well. How important is this to grow certifications further?
Oh, from our point of view, it is really important, especially due to the fact that was also the reason why we improved and also contacted and activated the local teams another time and again, and we are focused on different regions, and that's also one of the reasons why we are now translating in the different languages to get more feedback, to activate also more regions and to get also more members up on the standards. And we have seen in the past more often that we had some language barriers in the different regions, and for that reason we see that's really, really important. And with the solution we are going and choosing now, I think it's the best what we can do in the next 2-3 months.
Torsten, you have a new board election coming up. How much interest is there currently in joining Tapa Emea's board?
That's a good question, but it's a very difficult question, to be honest. As we all know, it's a voluntary position. So it's something what you, let's say that way, what you need to do beside your daily workload. And actually with the experience also I have, where I was standing more than 20 years as a volunteer on the board, and the same as Marcel, I must say it's not very easy to attract really people to stand up for election. But what I would like to say is, don't be afraid of the workload, because this is not what you need to be afraid of. We do all the work. So you have an amazing professional team. We have an amazing team supporting really everyone on a daily perspective. What we need is guidance, and it's really that people advise us what is going on right now within your world, because you are really the voice. You are the member. You are the people on the field. You know exactly what's going on in the country, and we don't know it. You can tell us what your company is working on. So stay for election. It's very important. We need people, we need support, and it's very important that we drive this really towards Europe, Middle East, and Africa.
Marcus, looking ahead, what do you expect the next new Tapa standards to be in the EMEA region? And where would you say is the greatest demand from members?
Yeah, we have, as mentioned yesterday, we are focusing now on the cybersecurity standard. Of course, we have some hurdles, we have some data protection issues right now in the current standard, and we are in contact already with the other regions. And also there's an interest about the GSR. Optionally, we roll them out only on one country, an African country, but that's what we next check. And of course, also, we may ask our members what's their interest and how we can support them on that. And there was already some requests and some questions regarding the GSR, and that's the reason why we are focusing now on that.
And I know that they can come back to you on that, or indeed any other issues that we're talking about today, or any other suggestions.
Of course.
Just let me finish, Marcel, with you, and Torsten, I'll ask you to add something as well. What would you like to see Tapa Emea doing more of in 2024 and beyond?
He's already smiling. I'm going to answer. No, one of my phrases and life mottos I always put in my emails, well, not always, but sometimes in my emails to the team, is sempre avanti. So always forward, and that's exactly what we need. I've seen in the past couple of years an embracement of technology, new features, and that is exactly what we need. I think we're on the right way there. We need to go forward. And as Torsten already mentioned, I would love to see our membership challenge our executive team and management staff to see if they can come up with things that, wow, that we never thought of that. And that's exactly what we need. So,
yeah.
Torsten?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what is quite important, and I think we discussed that over the last 2 days, really, and we always mention that in the conference. Everything what we do is for the members, and everything what the professional team is doing for the benefit of the membership. And we try to do, and we do, from my point of view, really everything possible to make it easier, to make it simpler, to digitalize, but also to look what else we can do. Nevertheless, we need your feedback. We really need to understand what's going on, what can we do? And as said by Marcel, and I love that, really something that we never thought about that. So let's do it. A good example is like, what we do in training right now, because at the end it came from the membership. It's really coming from there. And it's the same like with local activities. So what can we do more to attract more members? And I know it's frustrating. I know it's not sometimes easy, especially when you do something, but you're not successful. But overall, and that's also quite important, EMEA is so successful than never before. And what we also need to understand, that you need to always take a look at the entire family and not only at one area. And as I showed it also in the numbers, of course, we know it's not true that we have no major losses in Italy. Of course we know it, but it doesn't matter because we see the entire picture, and that's what we will focus on right now.
And I think shortly you'll be talking about the events coming up
Absolutely.
Next year in just a moment.
Absolutely.
So don't worry, I know everyone's keen to hear about that. We'll get to it. So Torsten, I know you're going to stay with us to close the conference, but thank you, to Marcel and to Marcus for all your time this afternoon and for those updates and for answering those questions. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you, Torsten.
Thank you.
And I'd like to thank all of our speakers today as well for taking the time to share their experiences, knowledge and expertise with our international audience of supply chain security professionals. We really appreciate your support and time. Well, that's it from me, because it's now time to hand over to Tapa Emea's President and CEO, Torsten Neumann, to close this year's Resilience at Risk virtual conference. Torsten, thank you for having me. It's over to you.
Thank you, Sam. Really, first of all, a big thanks to Sam. I think she made, again, an amazing job. And you block your calendar. Sam will block the calendar already for next year. And you will see that we have a lot of activities in 2024 already planned. What is quite important, 2023, we never had so many activities like in 2023. We had more conferences than ever before. And as you know, we are on our journey to the 25th anniversary of Tapa Europe, Middle East and Africa. So whilst we discuss now and what we do in 2024, please already have in mind that in 2025 we have the 25th anniversary of Tapa Europe, Middle East and Africa. So make a date. The most important thing right now is, next week our Italian team is really presenting and representing Tapa Europe, Middle East and Africa at the main security exhibition, which will take place in Milan. It's the Sicurezza. It's from the 15th to the 17th of November. You will see a communication pretty soon, and if you're interested in to visit us at this exhibition, at this fair, please let us know. And Dario and the local team is there to answer all your questions on our local activities. Block your calendar already for next year. It's very important, that we have our African conference will take place again in South Africa, in Johannesburg. We will go back to the Emperor's Palace. We had an amazing conference this year, and we will go back there, but we will top it really for next year. And please, please, please block your calendar for the 6th of March in 2024 and wait for the communication. So straight after this conference, we will send you more details. We will start the communication process. The local team is really working on amazing speakers. For those of you who have been there this year, I strongly believe that Buzizivi will be there again, and the EMEA team will be there. We will see amazing speakers also, of course, from the subs. 6th of March again, and conference registration we will open sometimes, in mid-end of December. So in 2024, we also plan a conference for Portugal and Spain. Felipe and the local team, they are doing an amazing job already on this one. It will be in October 2024, and it will be really a special conference which is focused on Spain and Portugal, and the main thing is to win especially law enforcement agencies. So we don't know the date right now. We know it's in Madrid, but again, stay tuned on this one. And stay tuned for more updates. What is now super important, as already said, block your calendar for the 12th and 13th of June. We will go back to Amsterdam. This is our annual conference. And we will go to a hotel which is directly attached to the Amsterdam Schiphol Airport. So our venue will be the Hilton Hotel. It's an amazing venue, and we are looking forward to the biggest event we ever organized. So we have a huge conference room. You will see the theme. It's again 1.5 days, and we will end the conference with another amazing party. So that's really quite important. If you have a specific topic, a case, a root cause analysis, a speaker where you say, Thorsten, Tapa Emea team, this is an amazing speaker. Please let us know. Please send us the information. Please let us also know, whom can we invite. Please share this information. It's also quite important. Everything what you see right now here, our YouTube channel, our Vigilant, share it with your people, share it with your organization. It's really a marketing opportunity for us to spread the word on this one. Before I will say thank you, I would like to say special thanks, for all of you joining us here over the last 2 days. But I also would like to say thank you to everyone who was engaged here over the last 2 days. You don't see them, but right now I'm looking into the camera, but I see at least 10 people behind the cameras. So again, special thanks to Sam, to Marcel, to Marcus, to Tamara, to Rick, to Ab, to all the people behind it. But again, Manuela is behind the camera, smiling always. Mattis is here. You all know them from the Captain Capture team. It's our camera team, it's our media team, and you will see more. What is also quite important, we plan now, as I already said yesterday, a kind of a podcast series from next year onwards. Whatever we can do, we will do more. I hope you love the studio. I hope you like the setup, and I hope I will see all of you next year. It's peak season. We are going into the Christmas season. I'm not saying Merry Christmas right now, but I wish all of you a great rest of the week. Stay safe, stay tuned, and how can you not be Taparized? I wish you a great day. Thanks to everyone, and bye-bye.